We are live. What's up, everybody? Wednesday, July 24th. Split slate, and unfortunately, FanDuel's making it more complicated, splitting it into two separate slates anyway in the early. So, we'll be talking Maine today. We'll both be around Slack for all the premium subs for the early. Adam, I assume you're playing the early?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. How did it go for you last night?
Not great. Hopefully today goes better. Last night was pretty ugly. It started out okay for me. Had a lot of Boyd, had a lot of Sale. I was overweight on Cano, but I had a lot of really good lineups that were like contrarian Dodgers. The Dodgers weren't contrarian, but I had a lot of really good pieces with the Dodgers that did well, and then the Dodgers just sucked.
I ended up not playing. We had some house showings, but 3 of my 4 highest ranked teams yesterday morning were the Reds, the Yankees, and the Twins. So a little nervous to see how that would have actually gone, considering they were the 3 teams that went into double digits in runs yesterday.
Yeah.
Any little Robinson Cano one-offs with some of those teams would have been likely pretty awesome. I've got the $15 150 max from DK up right now. Decent night for... Why is this filtered like it is? Did I click on a player? Yep. That's all the Jason Kipnis lineups. Decent night for Giant Squid. Finished 1st, 3rd, 4th, 7th, 10th, 11th, 12th. Not bad. Yeah. Decent return. A lot of Twins primary stacks. Some Mets, 2 mans. We also see Shanzon sneaking into the top 5. How much Boyd did you end up with?
About 36%, somewhere in there.
Okay. Yeah, Giant Squid also with around 30%. Big stand from Alex yesterday on Sale, 77. That's a big number. Not that I disagree with it or anything.
Yeah, no, he had said on our show that that's kind of what he was doing. I felt a little bit differently, but I was still overweight.
Yeah. Yeah, I have no qualms with getting that much Chris Sale. But, anytime that Jason Vargas can go for 30 fantasy points, you should see that stuff coming, right?
Yeah, and Dallas Keuchel and Danny Duffy against the Braves.
Yeah, Keuchel mowed down like a ton of dudes, right?
Yeah, he had 12 strikeouts in 6 innings.
He might not have 12 in his next 4 starts.
Right. It was perfect. Like on the deeper dive, Lofty's. We were talking about it being a good spot for Keuchel, but it also being Keuchel. Something came up about just, how it's baseball and extreme things happen. Lofty goes, yeah, I mean, like Keuchel could strike out 10 guys, but it's probably not going to happen. And it's probably not going to happen again for the rest of like his career.
Yeah, it's crazy. Oops, didn't mean to accidentally click on MMA, but that just happened. I'm just going to look at top stacks quick, and then we'll get to the business, since we don't have a ton to talk about today. Quick slate. No weather issues that I can see, so we should be in good shape there. Let's see here now.
Yeah, not supposed to be any like super hot games either, I don't think.
I know it should be like a relatively solid slate. Needed one of those. First time in a while. All right. Remove pitcher. So top overall team, Yankees, then Minnesota, then Cincinnati. Man, that's a real big kick in the junk. That makes me honestly like mildly sick to my stomach. I wouldn't have really had any Keuchel or anything, but I did like Caleb Smith. Not that I have any idea what would have happened, but seeing
you would have gotten some Keuchel probably. Like I hate Keuchel, and he still was in like 12% of my lineups.
Okay, yeah, I mean obviously not mad about that, but oh my god, that's a lot of my top 3 out of my top 4 from yesterday. So sad face there, especially with no exposure. I probably would have been in like the 2 to 3x range on all 3. So
yeah,
that's what happens when you try to sell a house. Not great. All right, let's do the normal plugs. MLB Strategy is the promo code. 50% off your first month with us. So if you're looking to check out Awesemo Plus packages, whether that's just for MLB or an all access where you get everything, all you have to do is enter the promo code MLB Strategy when checking out. One big word, you'll get 50% off. And as always, shout out to Yahoo Sports for being the presenting sponsor of this show. We'll be dropping the link to EMAC Spotlight Hitters and Stacks article into YouTube chat right now. If you want to get further information, please check out that link. You can sign up at Yahoo using the promo code AWESEMO and get up to $30 in Yahoo Sports Rewards points. They've got the best contests going right now. No management fee contests almost every day. 33% payout structure on some contests now makes it a lot better for the consumer. Should be the place that you're starting your day every day, in my opinion. Highly recommended. 8 games. Nothing crazy. This is an easy one for us. Start it off. You ready?
Yep.
Nats and Rockies. 5.3 run implied total for the Nats. Rockies 4.2, 62% chance to win for Washington. Pat Corbin going for the Nats. Kyle Freeland going for the Rockies. I'm honestly pretty excited to talk about this. Wait, do I have the wrong sheet open? No, it is Corbin. Did I paste the wrong ownership in? Why are these numbers not pulling through correctly? Give me 1 second. For some reason, it's just showing everybody as zeros for ownership, and I don't know why. Corbin not in the ownership? Can't be right, can it?
It's possible because they have the doubleheader today, so maybe they weren't sure who was pitching.
Yep, that is the reason. So that's going to be tricky. I'm going to send Tom a message. Yep. I think he's already messaging me. Tom Kennedy is typing. Go for it, Tom. You got it. Well, you're on a delay, so you're not going to know that, and it's going to be 30 seconds later. I was going to say, I really like Corbin if he's at 1% ownership and Bieber's at 18 and Syndergaard is at 47, but I don't get the sense that that is going to be how it plays out. So talk to me about what you think about Corbin today, because I'm a pretty big fan.
Yeah, still like Corbin. You know, you get Colorado outside of Coors Field, which is a really big deal. If you look at their overall numbers this season, the WOBA is above average, but the WRC Plus well below average. They have a 26.5% strikeout percentage outside of Coors Field. Corbin's been pitching better lately as well, so you know that's appealing. Last year, you know, definitely still looking like kind of an outlier season for him, but still throwing his slider a bunch, still putting up really good numbers. It's tough to pay more for him consistently than Bieber and Syndergaard in their respective matchups, but still would really like to get there in tournaments. I assume that he will come in at lower ownership than Syndergaard against the Padres. Really appealing.
Okay. Yeah, I had him in as my number 2 starter today, behind Syndergaard, although it's close. I have them both kind of like a step ahead of Bieber. I anticipate he's probably like Corbin gets a little bit less love just because he's at the top of the salary tier. But I'm guessing I end up over the field, but we don't really know where they're at right now. I'm trying to get Tom to see if he can run an update here. Any interest in Kyle Freeland?
No, not really. He really has been bad this year. And he was a pitcher anyway that didn't get a lot of strikeouts. And then now he's just not even really limiting runs either. Obviously a park upgrade for him going into Washington, but still a pretty tough, you know, Washington lineup. You have right-handed power with Turner, Rendon, Kendrick, Robles, and, you know, Dozier and Gomes aren't bad either. So just a pretty unappealing spot for Freeland.
Okay. I don't get the sense that I'll have much either. Nats, Bats, 5th on FanDuel, 7th on DK. Rockies, 4th on FanDuel, 11 on DK. Is there a team you prefer here more? I assume it's the Nats.
Yeah, Washington.
Top bat for me is probably Trey Turner. Anybody standing out for you?
No, I mean, Turner's up there. Rendon is a better hitter than Turner. Doesn't come with the stolen base upside, but you know, Rendon at 5,400, only 300 more than Turner is pretty appealing. And then Yan Gomes is a value play if he starts at catcher.
Yeah, I have him in as well, 2,700. It's just too cheap for, I mean, basically anybody on DK. Story and Arenado grading out really well for me. I can't imagine that I want to get a ton, but on an 8-game slate, you know, they're actually picking up a little bit of ownership. 12% for Arenado, 7% for Story. Pretty chalky on FanDuel as well. Okay, so Corbin is at 10-8 on FanDuel, but the Rockies are picking up. They're 4th in ownership. A lot of guys in double figures. Do you get the sense that on FanDuel you would have both sides of that game?
When I look at they're not that cheap. The Rockies aren't that cheap. So probably not a ton. I mean, Story and Arenado against a lefty obviously is fine. Corbin's allowed a 189 expected ISO to righties this year, so it's not like he's been great at limiting power. But it's not like we're getting Story at like 3,500 or something like that either.
That's a good point. Favorite bat in this entire game?
Rendon.
I can't really disagree all that much. Rendon over. So you would rather have Rendon over Arenado?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, I think Rendon's a better hitter than Arenado anyway, and he's got a better matchup.
That's not exactly untrue.
And like, I don't mean that like a markedly better hitter. I just mean like they're in the same conversation, and I think Rendon's a little bit better, and he has the better matchup. I didn't mean that to be like as hot takey as it probably sounded.
No, you're good. You're good. I think that's probably it. Pirates. Nope. That's just Pirate. One solo Pirate is not going to get it done. Pirates and Cardinals. 4.7 run and pie total for the Pirates. 4.8 for the Cards. 51% chance to win for St. Louis. Jordan Lyles going for the Pirates. Adam Wainwright going for the Cards. Jordan Lyles getting some love as an SP2. 6,100 on DraftKings right now. 22% expected ownership. He did look like a solid paydown option to me. I wrote him up in Spotlight Pitchers this morning. 22% ownership feels kind of high. How do you feel about Lyles here going up against the Cards?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good park. It's a watered-down Cardinals lineup, and $6,100. There's just nothing really around him. You have Kyle Freeland against Washington with a 6 implied run total. You have Reynaldo Lopez, who I think is a really good play, at a little bit more. But, Brad Keller against Atlanta is not appealing. Barria against the Dodgers isn't appealing. Stripling against the Angels isn't appealing. So it's kind of just a dead range for the most part. And it's a favorable pitcher's park. It's good pitching weather. The Cardinals are still missing 3 of their normal starters. You might have you might not have leaders in the lineup either, which would put another righty in there who's not very good. So, for against righties this year, Lyles has a 26.2% strikeout percentage. He's only allowed a 287 WOBA, and there's projected to be 6 righties in this lineup. So I just think it's too cheap of a price tag, even though Lyles does have some flaws.
I'm with you. So the only piece that I think is interesting, what do you think about Lyles being at 22% and Kyle Freeland at 1? Does that open up anything for you for Freeland?
Not intentionally. No, I mean, I just don't think they're in the same like projection range.
Okay. Any Adam Wainwright? He's unowned.
Probably not. He's been really good against righties this year. He's been really bad against lefties. And then on top of that, you have a Pittsburgh team that is well above average against right-handed pitching and doesn't strike out a lot. One of the lowest strikeout percentages in all of baseball. So you're talking about him having to face, Frazier, Reynolds, Bell, Moran, Dickerson, probably, all from the left side, 5 of the top 6. And also those guys being good hitters that don't strike out. And you're not really getting a discount on Wainwright.
Hey, not a guy for me. Don't anticipate getting much at all. Cardinals are the 3rd chalkiest team on FanDuel right now. Not a lot of ownership going to the Pirates. Not really much going to the Cards on DraftKings. Do you see this game as particularly appealing? I mean, I guess the Cardinals sort of open up more if you're trying to hedge against the Lyles ownership, but I'm not really sure what I like here.
Yeah, I'm mostly interested in the Pirates. Wainwright against lefties this year, just shy of a 20% strikeout percentage, 368 WOBA, 221 ISO. And, you have all those left-handed bats that I mentioned. Bell's price tags come down a bit because he's in a little bit of a slump, but Colin Moran is essentially free. Reynolds is really cheap. Frazier is really cheap. So I think that the Pirates are the side that I would actually rather get to here.
Ooh, interesting. I think I prefer the Cards. Most expensive bat in the Cards lineup, at least on DK, looking like Tommy Edman at 4,500, which, man, that's comical to think about.
Yeah.
Of all the hitters there, that's the one they picked. Fun. Jose Martinez, 1% projected ownership at 3,700 on DK today.
Yeah, I mean, he's a good hitter. Lyles has been, good against righties, though. 287 WOBA, 172 ISO, 300 expected WOBA, 166 expected ISO, with just north of a 26% strikeout percentage. I think if you're looking for bats against Lyles, you want to target lefties. 344 expected WOBA, 192 expected ISO, and a 23.5% strikeout percentage. So I would lean lefties, but in this lineup, where do you go left-handed?
Yeah, not a lot of options. The aforementioned Edman, Fowler, and Wong. That's about it. I don't get the sense that I'll have much exposure to this game.
If the Pirates come in low owned, I think I get there.
Okay. They're a team that I don't get all that often.
I don't either, but I like them a lot. I just don't usually get them. But they've been more expensive for a lot of the year. Josh Bell, the guy that you really want in your stacks, has been like 5,700 on DraftKings for the last 2 months.
Very true. I don't have anything else here.
Nope. It's pretty much anyone in a Pirates uniform for me.
So Blue Jays and Indians. Jays 4-run implied total, Indians 4.6, 57% chance to win for Cleveland. Marcus Stroman going for the Blue Jays. Shane Bieber going for the Indians. Bieber picking up a little bit more ownership than I kind of anticipated. 18% on DK right now. That could go down when Corbin gets added. Let's just start there. How do you feel about Bieber and in regards to the other two expensive arms?
I really like Bieber. I think that he's probably going to end up being relatively low owned. I think that he'll certainly be lower owned than Syndergaard. I think that you could see him kind of end up splitting ownership with Corbin potentially. But I think that Bieber's been the best pitcher on the entire slate this season. And that is appealing to me when you're going to get him at lower ownership than some other guys. He's struck out 31.1% of hitters. He has a 25.5% K minus BB percentage. That's the highest strikeout percentage and the highest K minus BB percentage on the entire slate. 3.15 xFIP is better than every pitcher going today, regardless of slate. He's just been remarkably good. And it's a middle of the road matchup against Toronto. He will give up some power, so that does scare me with how many power bats there are in the Toronto lineup. I wouldn't shy away from using some of those guys as one-offs or mini because of Bieber's home run issues. But I just think that Bieber's a really, really good pitcher. And I think he's a better pitcher than Syndergaard. I don't think the matchup's quite as good.
Yeah.
But I think he's a better pitcher. He's been a better pitcher this year than Corbin. Again, the matchup's not quite as good. But if the ownership's going to reflect that, I actually like the idea of getting the Bieber.
It's so weird. At the beginning of this season, I was just getting monstrous amounts of Bieber in places where he wasn't getting picked up, and I felt really happy about that. And now it seems like it's flipped on its head. I'm going to have more Syndergaard and more Corbin. I have Bieber like a full step behind those guys, and I don't really know what has changed. It's not like I'm still a pretty big Bieber fan, but
yeah,
I don't know what it is.
It's tough for me because I understand why Syndergaard's projecting better. But when you're thinking about it in terms of winning a tournament, you're getting a guy at basically the same price point. And yeah, he has a more favorable matchup. But one guy has a 31.1% strikeout percentage. One guy has a 23.7% strikeout percentage. One guy has walked 6.2% of hitters. One has walked 5.6. One has a 4.04 xFIP. One has a 3.15 xFIP. And the entire field is just saying, yeah, I want the guy with all the worst stats because his matchup's a little bit better.
It is a very different conversation when talking about large field tournaments than just a cash lineup or something, where I think we would probably both agree that Syndergaard is the better option for a cash game today.
Yeah, I think Syndergaard projects as the better play.
Yeah,
in terms of winning a tournament, I think Bieber is more likely, assuming that I'm right on ownership and that Syndergaard comes in much higher than Bieber. I think that Bieber gives you a better chance at winning a tournament.
I don't disagree at all. Indians have the most ownership right now on DK. Thoughts on that?
I'm not really there. I mean, Kipnis, I think, probably drives that a lot because he'll probably be hitting cleanup at 3,300.
Yeah.
But it's not like Stroman's a bad pitcher. He just doesn't strike guys out. I mean, the Indians only have a 4.5 implied run total here.
Yeah, it seems kind of weird to me. Now, look, I get it. They're affordable. They stack pretty cleanly. Shortstop, outfield, first, second, third in the first 5 spots of the order is always going to be beneficial when prices aren't super crazy. Mercado, 4,900, more expensive than Francisco Lindor. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. I don't get the sense I have the Indians as my 7th team. I don't get the sense that I'll be anywhere near this exposure. This seems like it'll be one of my bigger fades.
Yeah, I would expect that's the case for me also.
5th in ownership, Toronto Blue Jays on DraftKings. That seems really weird to me. I don't get the sense that I want really anything against Bieber.
I think that full stacking Toronto is probably not the best route, although they are really cheap and give you a lot of power, so I can see how it happens. But I do like the idea of getting to like a Justin Smoke at 3,500, 200 plus ISO against right-handed pitching. Bieber's allowed a 200 expected ISO to lefties. Guerrero's got a ton of power for 3,300. Biggio's got a ton of power, or has power from the left side. Grichuk has power. Jansen has power. I can definitely see getting to Toronto here just because Bieber does give up some power. He has a relatively high barrel per batted ball percentage this season, and these guys all have power and are cheap. 8.6% of balls in play against Bieber this season have been barreled. For context, that's basically the same as Matt Boyd and Justin Verlander.
Wow.
Who have both had issues with home runs, obviously.
Sure. Yes, they have. That's an understatement.
Yeah.
Well, I guess issues is sort of, they give them up. It hasn't really been an issue.
What'd you say?
I said they give them up, but it hasn't necessarily been an issue. So.
No, I was gonna point that out too. Like that's like the only negative stat for Bieber, kind of like it's the only negative stat for Boyd and for Verlander. If you look at the PCRA leaderboard among qualified starters this season, Bieber's right up there at 2.92 in the same same tier as Verlander and Boyd and Strasburg and Morton. Like he's been a really, really good pitcher, all things considered. It's just that he will give up home runs.
That's a good point. Favorite bat in this game?
Smoke.
Ooh, that was not an answer I was expecting. But 3,500. I see where you're coming from there. Probably still Lindor for me.
Yeah, I mean, Smoke's my favorite tournament bat. I guess in cash, like you should be looking at Lindor and Kipnis and probably Ramirez.
No real crazy prices. Part of this Blue Jays lineup is pretty easy to get to on Yahoo, so if you're interested there, that could be a sneaky stack. Nobody picking up any real ownership. This is mostly just a DK play. Jays and Indians on Yahoo and FanDuel, no one over 9% ownership. So everybody's in single digits. I think that's probably it here. Moving pretty good. Most of the offense is in the second half of this show, so we'll probably be slowing down a little bit there. Mets and Padres, 4.6 run implied total for the Mets, 3.8 for the Pods, 59% chance to win for New York. Here's Noah Syndergaard going up against the Pods. Dinelson Lamet going for the Padres. Here's some ownership for you. 62% for Syndergaard on Yahoo, 37 on FanDuel, 47 on DraftKings. Look, I think it's easy to see that this is probably the best spot of the day. Padres have been striking out more than any other team in the league against right-handers. It's not like Syndergaard is a massive strikeout pitcher, but still a better than average strikeout pitcher. Plays right into his hands there. Doesn't really have any issues with power on either side. This just feels like a really high floor spot for Syndergaard.
Yeah, I think so too. He's against righties this year. He struck out about 26.5% compared to 20% of lefties. Doesn't allow a lot of power, like you said. So it is a good spot for him. Outside of Yahoo, though, where he's $43, he is priced up on DraftKings and FanDuel. Like Noah Syndergaard, you can make whatever arguments you want about how talented he is and how good he should be at pitching. He's not a $10,000 pitcher. He hasn't been this year for sure. In the past, I don't think he has been either, but it was more debatable then. It's that he's priced up for this matchup. And he's just always someone that I think you can be underweight on if he's coming in at really high ownership because he's good, but not that good.
I'm obviously a bigger fan of Syndergaard than you are on a day-to-day basis.
I think everyone's a bigger fan of Syndergaard than I am.
It's a pretty safe bet, too.
Yeah.
I expect to be close to the field there. I'm assuming that I end up higher on Corbin. I have Corbin and Syndergaard pretty similar today. It's just a really, really good spot. I'm really anxious to see the lineup here. It's just a really good spot for him with the way that San Diego has been striking out against righties. Could be a spot for a big day for Syndergaard if it comes in. And I think he is pretty clearly the cash play across all three sites. on
Yep.
Yahoo in particular, he's $4 cheaper than Bieber and Corbin. It makes it even easier there.
Yeah, like Yahoo, I really don't know how to get away just because he's cheap and in a really good spot. The argument for me on DraftKings and FanDuel is that he's the least, he's the worst out of Bieber, Corbin, and himself. And because of the matchup, those sites have priced him into that range, even though his talent doesn't deserve it. So basically, in general, in tournaments, I'm fine being underweight whenever there's a situation where a player's salary is moved up because of his circumstances and the field is flocking to him because of his circumstances. I'm okay being underweight. That's not the case on Yahoo, where his price didn't really move and he's just in a great spot.
Makes sense. How are you feeling about Dinelson Lamet? He's $29 on Yahoo. I think you and I will both be on the same page that he's probably one of the better pay down options there. 6,600 on FanDuel, still a little appealing. 8,400 on DraftKings. He's getting ownership. I don't get the sense that I want to spend 8,400 on him though.
No, I agree with you at 29 on Yahoo. There's just a lot of upside there because of his strikeout stuff, but he's had issues with lefties since he debuted in 2017. He has struck out 23.8% of lefties compared to 34.1% of righties. He's allowed a 181 expected ISO to lefties, 184 to righties. So power's been there to both sides. 319 expected WOBA to lefties, 289 to righties. You have some good left-handed bats here with McNeil, Conforto, Cano, Smith, and then Alonso, of course, is just a phenomenal hitter. So it's not like it's an easy matchup. The Mets against right-handed pitching, their active roster has been slightly above average this year. There's not a ton of strikeouts in the lineup. The pricing on DraftKings isn't super appealing for Lamet. On FanDuel, you only need one pitcher. On Yahoo, it's really appealing. So pretty site dependent.
Yeah, 6,600 on Yahoo or on FanDuel is kind of interesting to me. I don't know what to do because I think that the three guys at the top are so clearly above everybody else. But is 3,400 plus worth it? Can he be close enough in total points that it doesn't matter?
Is he actually a better option than Zach Gallen?
I'd say they're both comparable. I have them separated by like a half point. They have very similar ownership.
Yeah, I think I'd Gallen.
I mean, either way, is it worth either one of those guys? I guess is the bigger question.
If you're playing 150 lineups, then sure, because it gives you access to a different roster construction. And both of those guys, Lamet clearly has the strikeout upside. Gallen has good enough strikeout stuff, and he's got a really good matchup against the White Sox. So they are in situations where it's not just purely and this is a debate we had in Slack yesterday. It's not, you're not just looking at it saying, oh, they're cheap, they can get me 30 points. Like they actually have the ability and or matchup to go out there and get you, 45, 50.
Right. And an 8-game slate is a lot different than a 15-game slate when it comes to picking different pitchers. The shorter that slate gets, the more you're open to different construction. On a 15-gamer, it's a lot different to pay down like that.
Yeah. Paying down today, you're basically just hoping that you get mediocre games from 3 pitchers in Corbin, Syndergaard, and Bieber. Yesterday you were hoping that like half the aces in baseball all had bad games at the same time.
Right. Like if Corbin, Bieber, and Syndergaard all hit their sort of like projections and they're on like the 40 point range on FanDuel, then getting, 30 out of Lamet is really like not all that bad.
Right.
On a 15-gamer though, there's just going to be so many arms that something inevitably is going to break free. There's just too many bodies, especially yesterday where there were countless top arms.
Right.
Right now, no ownership going to the Mets. They are 12th on FanDuel, 13th on DK. No ownership going to the Pods, 15th on FanDuel, 14th on DK. I'll probably get to a little bit of San Diego, but again, I don't get the sense that I want a ton in this game.
Yeah, I'm mostly interested in Mets bats in this game because
we are on opposite sides of the coin today.
I mean, Lamet just gives up power, and the Mets have a lot of good lefties, plus Alonso. From the Padres side, you can obviously make the argument for guys like Reyes and Renfroe that just have massive power. But I do think Syndergaard is, pretty good at preventing runs. He's not someone that goes out there and usually gives up a lot of home runs. It's just that he disappoints from a fantasy standpoint because he doesn't command his fastball well, gives up a lot of, unlucky, quote unquote, unlucky hits, and just doesn't really put together a lot of the games that he should. But that's not really appealing to take hitters against either. Like I think Syndergaard very easily can disappoint at his price tag without the Padres being guys that you need in your lineup.
No, that I completely agree with. They're super cheap outside of Tatis and Machado. Margot, Hosmer. I mean, Framil Reyes is 3,500.
Yeah.
Although,
So I
just
mean,
Syndergaard's
I
just
think
not
it's
that kind of guy.
It's comparable to the Blue Jays in that you have these guys that are really cheap in a bad spot with a ton of power. But the Blue Jays are facing a pitcher that his one flaw is that he will give up power, whereas Syndergaard is actually good at not doing that.
That's a good point. Yeah, Syndergaard does not really have any like major holes when it comes to giving up power. So at 40, let's say that Syndergaard comes in at 40%. You think you're under that number by a bit?
Most likely, yeah.
Okay. Favorite bat in this game?
Cano at 3,100. Conforto would be right behind him at 4K.
You just playing the heater on Cano, I guess.
Yeah.
Such a fish move, man.
It's
it's Machado for me, even against Syndergaard. I like that price tag.
Yeah. So I guess speed in the San Diego lineup would be interesting. The problem is that like Tatis is really expensive. Margot will run. I think Margot is kind of interesting actually if he's sitting second.
Yeah, 3,600, not a bad price. 2,800 on FanDuel. $18 on Yahoo is probably not necessary.
No,
that seems like aggressive.
Where I want power bats against Bieber, I want fast guys against Syndergaard.
Yeah, that makes sense. How has he been this year?
I haven't actually checked. I'm assuming bad.
Stands to reason, at least.
He has allowed 20 stolen bases this year.
So not good.
No.
Find some speed against Syndergaard and you should be okay. I mean, that's kind of how you have to get it because power is probably not the most likely scenario.
Yeah, and it's a big reason why it's so easy for him to disappoint at an expensive price tag because he's not going to let a lot of guys on base, but if he lets anyone with even remotely decent speed on base, then they're on second or third, and it doesn't take a whole lot for him to have suddenly given up 2 or 3 runs, and that's tough to beat when you're 10K.
Absolutely. Perfect time for everybody that is here to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell. Coming up later today, we will have the deeper dive from 5 to 6 with Adam, Laffy, and the boss man, Alex Baker. This will be the last time that Alex is on for this week. And then it's all going to be on the same link once again today. So immediately following the deeper dive, Chris Spags and I will pop up and do live before lock from 6 to 7. And then tonight at 9 p.m., Ben Rasa, Jason Roslin talking about the WGC FedEx St. Jude Invitational, doing some live before lock PGA content. Golf lineups lock tomorrow at 6 a.m., I believe. So tune in, listen to those guys, get your lineups in, and hit the sheets. Braves and Royals. Braves, 5.4 run implied total. Royals, 4.1. 64% chance to win for Atlanta. Julio Teheran going for the Braves. Brad Keller going for the Royals. Teheran picking up some ownership. 25% at 8K on DK. I do not want Julio Teheran here. Do you?
I obviously haven't crunched anything, but I would be absolutely shocked if I got even close to 25% on Teheran.
Okay. Let's see. I think Tom's got an ownership update in now. Might be able to take care of Corbin issues. Nope. Ignore me. Yeah, I don't want him here at all. It's not even it's not a good strikeout matchup. I mean, I guess it's good in the fact that he should see 7 righties, which plays into his, strengths, but
used to. Now he doesn't have any strengths.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess I know that it's true. It would be really weird if it wasn't true and you said it anyway. Yeah, 180 x ISO to righties this season, 145 to lefties, 174 to righties over the past 2 seasons. It's not as if they have a lot of power. I don't know. There's no way I want 25% of this guy.
I understand why people would get there. They have a 4 implied run total. They lose their designated hitter. They didn't have a hitter to lose as it was. It's a bad lineup. I mean, they struck out 12 times in 6 innings against Dallas Keuchel. Like it's a really bad lineup right now. No Mondesi, no designated hitter. I understand how you get there. I'd be more interested if we didn't have both pitchers in the White Sox game facing the White Sox and the Marlins.
Yeah.
For less, it's just a pretty mediocre pitcher in Tehran in a good spot. But again, his price tag moved. It's not like we're getting $6,500 Tehran like he should be.
Yeah, I think I would just rather have Lamet right above him and Gallen right below him. And at that point, it's just like, why would I want to get there?
I'd rather have Gallen. I'd rather have Lopez. I'd rather have Lyle.
Yeah, Lopez is going to be an interesting conversation because I hate those kind of days where it's like, oh, I'm going to have a ton of Reynaldo Lopez today. This should be great. And then you see the line and it's 0.2 innings, 8 hits, 8 runs, 8 earned, 2 home runs. And you're just like, cool, game over. I assume we don't need to talk about Brad Keller.
No, not a high strikeout guy, not a good strikeout matchup. That's enough for me.
Yeah, that seems like a good place to draw the line in the sand. Braves getting a little bit more ownership than the Royals, which should not come as a huge shock. 6th on FanDuel, 4th on DraftKings. I think that sounds about right. The 5.4 run implied total is great. I rarely get full-on Braves stacks. I'll want pieces of this. It doesn't help that they've got 3 arms on DK, or 3 bats on DK north of 5K, including $5,700 Acuna. Not that he doesn't deserve it. He grades out really well for me even at that price tag. But what do you want to do with Atlanta here against Keller?
Yeah, I mean, if they're going to be really popular, I would guess that I come in underweight because, like you, I just don't usually get to full stacks here all that much, especially now that, they're expensive. You have to pay for them. Acuna's expensive. Donaldson's expensive. Keller's not great at preventing runs. He has a 4.93 xFIP. He only has a 16.8% strikeout percentage. He has a double-digit walk percentage, but he does a good job of keeping the ball on the ground. He's only allowed 0.7 home runs per 9 innings this year. The Braves are likely to be one of the higher scoring teams on the slate. You can tell, you just look at their, implied run total. It's just that I think a lot of the time they get there in kind of unappealing ways for fantasy purposes.
Agreed. Completely agree.
Like when we get to the Yankees, I think there's a good chance that like every ball that they hit is a home run and they just get no other hits. Whereas the Braves, I think it's like just a lot of hits, but probably not that much power.
Which is weird because they have a ton of power.
Yeah, no, they do. It's that, Keller is the ground ball pitcher that doesn't hit a home run.
Yeah, Keller over the past 2 seasons, 127 and 126 x ISO against lefties and righties respectively. He just doesn't give it up. So it's a tough sell for me. I'll happily be a little bit underweight, but go Braves. Any Royals bats standing out to you?
Whit Merrifield, because he will run anytime he's on base here.
Yeah, I have no
issue with that.
Also,
Humberto Arteaga is 2K on DraftKings.
13% expected ownership right now. Probably.
I know he can't hit. I'm looking to see if he's fast.
I should hope so.
I mean,
he has to be, right? He has to have like 70 grade speed to be in the league if you're going to be that bad.
Right. Like he's probably a really good defender, but if you're a good defender, you're probably pretty quick.
Yeah, I mean, this is the Royals. They have like 15 guys that are the exact same person.
Yeah, he stole 11 bases at AAA this year. That's enough for me.
Yeah, that'll work. Yeah, if that dude somehow had like a 45 run tool or something like that,
right,
he'd be in a beer league somewhere. 0.080 projected ISO from Steamer. Congrats. There's not even any like really crazy prices outside of Arteaga on DK.
Yeah, pretty. Nicky Lopez can run too. He's 2,900.
Flat minimum on Yahoo, 2,200 on FanDuel. Man, the Royals have 3 bats under 3K on DK. You do not see that all that often. And it's not September.
Right. It's not even like they're egregiously mispriced.
No. I wouldn't. Like, I don't think that anybody should be 2K on DraftKings, but I don't think that any of them deserve to be over 3.
Right.
Brutal. Alrighty. Here we go. White Sox and Marlins. 4.6 run implied total for the White Sox. 4.4 for the Marlins. 52% chance to win for Chicago. Reynaldo Lopez going for the Sox. Zach Gallen going for the Marlins. 13% expected ownership for Lopez on Yahoo. 27 on DK is the number we need to look at. He is 7K. The Marlins have been atrocious against right-handed. I mean, they're just atrocious for everything. They are dead last in ISO against righties this season. They're pretty much dead last in everything, or at least in the bottom 5 for almost every relevant category. Problem is, this guy is Reynaldo Lopez, who's not very good in general. What do you do with him?
I'm rostering a bunch.
Yeah, I'm going to have an absolute ton.
The Marlins are going to run out a very right-handed heavy lineup. Lopez gives up power to both sides of the plate, but he does have a 25% strikeout percentage against righties this year compared to 16.3 against lefties. That's a pretty big split, and you're just getting, a really favorable matchup against Miami. The park isn't great. It is a, positive park shift for the Marlins, but Lopez's price tag is still affordable enough that I'll get to plenty of him. If you were looking for bats against him, I think you look to Brian Anderson. Garrett Cooper is expensive, but Brian Anderson, Jorge Alfaro, a catcher, is fine. Probably the two best plays from Miami.
Surprise, surprise. The Marlins are chalk because of their price tags again. A number 1 in ownership on FanDuel, number 3 on DraftKings right now. How are you feeling about rostering the Marlins today?
Do they ever actually end up being chalk?
I have no idea.
Because I feel like they don't. I feel like it's, or at least it's full stacks.
FanDuel, I would imagine, yes. I think that's a little bit different because they've had 8 of 9 guys under 2,600 every day for the past week.
Yeah, and FanDuel, they're a more appealing team anyway because there's more merit to just getting guys that are going to get on base and drive each other in.
Right.
Whereas with DraftKings, you really need a team that is going to hit a bunch of home runs, and that's normally not Miami. But yeah, so I think that they end up being filler individually. I could see Castro picking up some ownership. Just actually probably not because Kipnis is even cheaper. But just kind of they're affordable. They're guys that can fit in. You can get good pitchers, and they can help you with more expensive stacks. But I would rather get to a Justin Smoke or a Manny Margot or something like that, despite the more difficult matchup.
Yeah, I have no interest in. I have them ranked 13th. I want to go out of my way to not have the Marlins here. I don't mind it so much on DK just because of Lopez on the opposite side, but I would much rather just have Lopez more and take my chances. Craziness. No ownership really going to the White Sox. So let's talk about Zach Gallen for a little bit. $32 on Yahoo, $6,800 on FanDuel, and $7,800 on DraftKings. I'm a fan. I don't really know what else to say. I'm happy to get him in really any sort of volume that I can. I'd say that he's probably best off on FanDuel and Yahoo and worst on DK, but still good on DK.
Yeah, I still expect that I'll get a lot on DraftKings. He's only thrown 22 innings in the majors this year, 91 at AAA. In his 91 innings at AAA, he had 33.6% strikeout percentage, only a 5.1% walk percentage. That's pretty unusual to see a strikeout percentage that high and good control. Ground ball percentage at AAA was 46.2%, which is also pretty good. So all that's working in his favor. Since in his 22 innings in the majors, he has the strikeouts have been there at 26.3%. He has a huge 14.1% walk percentage, but there's no track record throughout the minor leagues of him having control issues. So I don't think that obviously you would expect walks to increase when you come up from the minors, but jumping from where he was to where he has been in the majors isn't something that you expect to see. And then on top of that, the White Sox have the lowest walk percentage against right-handed pitching this season. So I just think it's a really favorable matchup. I think he's a good pitcher, and it's a favorable matchup here. So far since coming to the majors, he's faced the Dodgers, he's faced the Nats twice, he's faced I think the Mets and the Cardinals. He hasn't had the most appealing string of matchups, but this is a really good one for him. I think he's a really talented pitcher. I'll be getting to a lot of him here.
Okay, nice. On the same page there, do you have any interest in White Sox bats? Because they are essentially unowned, and they are 14th for me today.
Yeah, not a ton. Their lineup right now is just weak. Not having Jimenez in there makes it really tough. Reed play the same position, which makes it tough to stack them. John Jay is a pretty unappealing hitter. Yohan Moncada has a bunch of power.
It's basically Moncada and Abreu for me.
Yeah.
And even then, what's the point? Yeah, just can't Can't really recommend it. AJ Reed for $10 on Yahoo, I think, has some appeal. Also, Neil Walker is $7 on Yahoo. Curtis Granderson, $7 on Yahoo. If you're looking for pay down options that are viable in a game where
I pulled Gallen's game logs up and I was right. 2 starts against the Nats, 1 against the Mets, 1 against the Dodgers, 1 against the Cards. So
good memory.
I mean, I looked at it like during the show, preparing for the game, and then I had taken it down, and I just didn't know if I was still right.
Rain Man over here. All right, Twins and Yankees. 5.3 runs on both sides. Coin flip game. Jake Odorizzi and J.A. Happ, the 2 starters. This does not feel like a spot where I'm going to be getting to either pitcher. Do you have interest in Odorizzi or Happ?
Give me the bats in this game.
Yep. Number 1 for me on the slate, the New York Yankees. They are 9th in ownership on FanDuel, 8th on DK. Twins are 3rd for me. They are 7th in ownership on FanDuel, 9th on DraftKings. We are talking about what I expect to be my 2 most owned teams. I want all of these bats. I'm just slightly more angry that I didn't do this yesterday.
Yeah, I'm upset that we talked about it on the show yesterday, and me and Alex agreed that it was great to get to both spots. I don't know how much he got to. I didn't get to nearly enough. But Odorizzi is a spot where I love talking about him now, because early on in the season, when he was striking out like 30% of hitters, I kept saying that it wasn't going to last and blah, blah, blah. And then he'd go out there and do it again, and I looked dumb. But finally, he's down to like 25%. His strikeout percentage has been free falling. But he's a pitcher who throughout his career has struggled more with right-handed power than left-handed power. And so far this season, he's had success against righties, but it doesn't really look all that sustainable. He's allowed a 245 WOBA to right-handed hitters compared to a 337 expected WOBA. He's allowed a 132 ISO compared to a 228 expected ISO. It's really unusual to get to this point in the season and still have someone that has the massive gap between their expected numbers and their actual numbers. But if you look at Odorizzi, some of his other numbers, it makes sense too. He's allowed 1.09 home runs per 9 innings, but he has a 9 his home run per fly ball percentage has actually come up to 9.9% now. For a lot of the season, it was at like 6%. It's still a little bit lower than his career average, but it's trending in that direction. It's just he's been getting lucky this year in terms of limiting power, particularly to righties. His strikeout percentage earlier in the season was a bit of a fluke. It's coming down now, as we would expect. And now he's running into a Yankees lineup that just has a ton of right-handed power and really, really good hitters.
Do you have a favorite bat in this game, or is it too hard to even pick one?
It's too hard to pick one, but in tournaments, I think there's a good chance that Gleyber Torres comes in under-owned because he'll probably be hitting 7th. But on DraftKings, he's 4,200 with multi-position eligibility, has a ton of power. So I think that he's probably, I would guess he's like the guy that I end up with the highest multiplier to the field from this game.
Okay. Highest owned guy on the Yankees right now is Judge at 12%. Everybody else is in single digits. Garver and Cruz, the only people in double digits on the Twins, highest being 15%. These guys just aren't getting all that much ownership. I can't wait. So today will be the 2-1 pitcher's duel.
Yep. Is this also the it's one of the warmest. I mean, there's not a lot of like hot games, but it's up there for the warmest on the slate.
Yeah, highest implied total we have, just from everything I entered this morning, Dodgers 5.4, Braves 5.4, Yankees, Twins, and Nats all at 5.3. So you're either in that group or you're in like the mid 4s. So I assume that the weather is looking pretty favorable for them today.
Yeah, I'm seeing Dodgers at 5.9 now for what it's worth.
Oh, okay. Good to know. Interesting pricing. Austin Romine is $8 on Yahoo. That will help you get to some additional Yankees bats. I mean, everything just looks good. Nelson Cruz for $4K on FanDuel, $4,900 on DraftKings. It's just some monster power potential against a lefty. I really don't know what to say. There's not a single bat in this game that I don't have some interest in. I want to stack basically everybody.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you get, because I expect there to be, or there is so much offensive potential in this game, when you get to like the really suboptimal plays, I'm still interested because everyone knows they're suboptimal. Like $5,200 Max Keller is going to have 0 ownership, but Happ isn't lights out against lefties. And if we think the Twins are going to score a lot of runs, then it's just an easy way to be contrarian in tournaments.
Absolutely. The only guy that
Like
stinks
he'd
in
be
this
my least
game.
favorite play in the game.
Yeah, that makes sense. Oh man, look, I'm just gonna have. If the aggregate ownership on the Twins and the Yankees really is 6% apiece for both teams, I assume that I have 10 to 12 on both sides.
Yeah, and I think it'll be pretty easy too, because if you just think about it, we liked the Nats. I liked the Pirates somewhat. You didn't. You liked the Cardinals somewhat. I didn't.
Yeah.
We didn't really love anyone from the Toronto game or the Mets game. Didn't love anyone in the White Sox game or the Braves game. So it's not like this is a slate where, despite there not being a ton of great pitching, it's not a slate where there's a bunch of offenses where we're just like, I don't know how this misses.
Right. Yeah, and if so much of this ownership is going to the Indians and the Marlins right now, the two of the three highest owned teams, I will happily trade that in for Twins and Yankees.
Yeah, and while there are three high upside pitchers at the top, it's not like the mid range or bottom range lack upside. They obviously lack consistency with guys like Lopez and Lyles and Gallen, but those guys all have strikeout potential.
Yeah, absolutely.
So my point there being that it's not like yes, obviously it didn't work out this way yesterday, but if you looked at projections for yesterday and you kind of just looked at what the pitchers had to offer, there was a real chance that the guys at the top scored 30 points and the most of the mid-range scored like 12. And so there was some merit to just hoping for the best on some cheaper stacks. But today, you're not even sacrificing a ton of upside by paying down a pitcher.
Agreed. Final game of the main slate, and we'll touch on some early stuff. It's all broken up, so we'll try to do our best here. Dodgers 5.4 run implied total, or potentially higher. Angels 4.1, 64% chance to win for LA. Ross Stripling going for the Dodgers. Jaime Murray going for the Angels. I don't get the sense that I want either guy. Stripling getting a little bit of ownership, up to around 10%, but I just don't. It's not a great strikeout matchup, and he is still not in a position to go super deep in this game, is he?
It's just not a good matchup, and it's a good offense. Looking to see what he did in his most recent start as far as pitches goes. He went 5 innings, 90 pitches against Phillies, so he stretched out, but it's just still an unappealing matchup. I don't think it's a better spot for him than it is for Gallen or for Lopez.
Okay. Yeah, we're on the same page there. I like Stripling. I really liked him when he came up last year. He was a guy that I was going to a lot, but doesn't seem to be sticking around the way that I wanted him this year. Number 2 on FanDuel, number 2 on DraftKings, and number 2 to me, the Dodgers looking pretty darn tasty, but this appears to be the spot where ownership is going of all of these 5+ run implied total teams. Not changing anything for you though, right? Go Dodgers.
It makes me kind of want to take the slate off because I know it's like a lose-lose for me. Either I play the really popular team and they suck, or I fade the really popular team that I was all over yesterday and they have the breakout game. But a lot here really will come down to ownership, because while they do have the highest implied run total on the slate and they obviously have a ton of talent, the matchup I don't think is quite as good as people are going to give it credit for. Jaime Murray has been, going back to last year, really good at limiting production from lefties, and obviously that's the majority of the Dodgers lineup. Since last year, he has a 22.4% strikeout percentage against lefties, 302 expected WOBA, 152 expected ISO. He's thrown his slider 29% of the time. He's allowed no power on it, 18.3% swinging strike percentage. Whereas against righties, he's allowed a 359 expected WOBA and a 214 expected ISO. So maybe prioritizing guys like Turner and AJ Pollock while everyone else is going to the lefties is, one way you could be contrarian here, whether that's just being sure to include them in your stacks or grabbing them as one-offs. But it's just a situation where, the Dodgers obviously have a ton of upside, but if they're going to be higher owned than teams like the Twins and the Yankees, I'll probably end up just getting more Twins and Yankees.
I think we're on the same page there. I'm hoping guys like Justin Turner stay at like 8% ownership, because I think that becomes a little bit more appealing. And it's not like just because Berea limits power potential that Bellinger is somehow not viable.
Yeah, exactly. It's just that I wanted to point it out because I think that it's really likely, Bellinger's going to project really well. Berea is not a great pitcher overall. They have a really high implied run total. I just wanted to point it out because I think it's a spot where a lot of people just look at it and go oh yeah, Jaime Murray, LOL Dodgers, let's go.
Yeah.
And there is at least some reason. there's something you can specifically point to if you ask me at 10:30 in the morning, say, we know for a fact the Dodgers scored 2 runs tonight. What's the reason? Like, there's something you can specifically point to for why that probably happened.
Yeah, I'm with you. This is a spot where I don't get the sense that I'll just like soar over the field. I'll probably be around it. My bigger pieces will be Yankees and Twins.
Like, I liked the Dodgers more last night against Pena than I do tonight against Berea, even though I think Pena is a better pitcher. I think that the matchup was better for the Dodgers.
Agreed. Anything for you from the Angels side? They're not really getting much ownership. I'm cool with getting a little bit, but I don't need to go too crazy. I mean, obviously, we know Mike Trout is Mike Trout.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I'm okay with it just because they're a talented offense, but them losing Ohtani in National League Parks really, really just sucks because, for one, obviously you lose the DH, so it just you have the pitcher in there, so it's harder to flip the lineup over, etc. But when your DH is also your second best hitter, it just really waters down your lineup.
Yeah. Righties against Stripling over the past 2 seasons. 212 ISO, 162 X ISO, but he's been really good at limiting power against lefties. So at the very least, the Angels are set up with mild right-handed power. I'm grasping at straws here.
Yeah, I mean, if you get to the Angels, it's simply that they don't have ownership and they're a good offense that puts the ball in play a lot and has some power even without Ohtani. But they still have one of the lowest implied run totals on the slate. They're facing a good pitcher in Stripling. The Dodgers have a good bullpen behind them. So I don't think I'll get a lot.
Okay. 8 games up, 8 games down. Want to talk a little bit about early?
Yeah.
Pull up my early sheet. So today is a little wonky. FanDuel early locks at noon. They included the, I don't even know who it is, Rays and somebody, right?
I don't know.
Perfect. They have included the Boston Tampa Bay game. So FanDuel has a 5-game very early slate and a 3-game early slate, while DraftKings has no Tampa Bay game included, but everything else is in one big slate. So it's a 7-gamer on DraftKings. Try to keep that stuff in mind when we're talking about some of these guys. It's hard to really detail out. Tell me I didn't save this.
What'd you do?
Oh, dude, I got really confused because I saw Nats and Rockies on the early slate, and I was like, I never saved my early slate sheet. But then I remember there was a doubleheader. So just try to keep it in mind for context. We have to speak a little bit more generically about like ownership and how to work ownership with regards to the slates, because FanDuel and DK are basically opposite day today. Anything that stands out to you, just full stop right out of the gate?
Pitching's pretty ugly. You have Justin Verlander.
Yeah.
And then John Gray, I guess, as like actual good pitchers on the slate.
Not a Mike Minor guy. He is the chalk pitcher on DraftKings right now.
Yeah, I forgot about Minor. God, his price tag is just always so unappealing. But
John Gray, 8% ownership right now.
I like the ownership there.
Yeah.
Gray's just a good pitcher at a reasonable price tag. It's a dangerous matchup, but I think that's interesting.
And on FanDuel, I believe you're getting Charlie Morton and... You're getting Charlie Morton for the Rays. You're getting David Price for Boston. So at least for the FanDuel early, pitching looking a little bit better.
Yeah, Price in particular.
Right.
Because he's not facing the Red Sox.
Yeah. Surprise, surprise. Going up against the Red Sox does not make you better off for a given day.
Unless you're Asher Wojciechowski.
Unless you're Adrian Wojnarowski. So I'm going to hit on a little bit of the DK ownership for right now. Verlander 36%, Minor 39%. And then we've got 4 guys in the 20s at the bottom. Tyler Beede, Vince Velasquez, Julie Chassin, and Taylor Clark. Anything standing out to you when I say that we have those 4 guys in the 20s?
I think there's a good chance that I end up just like jamming Vince Velasquez.
Yeah, he's the guy that got to the top of my dummy crunch. I also got to only 3% Taylor Clark.
I'd be fine with that.
Yeah, I'm not really sure why he's getting to 22% ownership. Is there something in like the underlying data that I'm missing here?
No, he's awful, but he's facing the Orioles. The same reason that Merrill Kelly was 16, and I'm not even making fun of it because I had right around the field, but the same reason Merrill Kelly was 16% owned on yesterday's full slate. Pitching is questionable.
Yeah.
Taylor Clark is dirt cheap. The Orioles are bad. The roof is closed in Arizona. But is he the cheapest pitcher?
No.
Yeah, he's Zimmerman. So other than Zimmerman, he's the cheapest pitcher.
Would you rather have Clark or Zimmerman?
Fetty.
Okay.
I feel like he counts. He's not good either.
Good answer. I don't see the Taylor Clark ownership. I don't really want Chacin. I mean, Tyler Beede and Vince Velasquez, of those 20% guys, are the guys that I think are a bit more appealing. I don't really have much interest in Fede or Clark.
Tyler Beede scares the hell out of me. The Cubs have a 5 implied run total in San Francisco.
Yeah, it doesn't exactly make me feel great.
And he's priced up.
Yeah.
Like, it's not even quite the same tier. I mean, he's 13% more expensive than Chacin is. He's like a quarter more expensive than Clark. But, like, obviously I get, I think Beattie's got good stuff, but he does really struggle with lefties. And anytime a team has a 5 implied run total in San Francisco, it's pretty scary.
So the bigger question, I think, for DraftKings and even FanDuel to a lesser extent, although because of Morton and Price, it's mitigated slightly. Justin Verlander is $12,100 today. He's $1,700 more expensive than Mike Minor. He's just simply on a tier of his own. We've got really chalky bats coming in Philadelphia, basically twice any other team right now. With Verlander at 36% ownership, is that appealing to you? Because to me, he's very clearly the top arm. Do you think you would be paying up aggressively for Verlander today because of that price on on just a 7-game slate?
I think so, because there's not really expensive offenses that I feel like I have to jam in either.
Yeah.
You look, and the Phillies are affordable in a great spot. They're popular, like you said. But my thinking is, if the standard roster construction is going to be your SP2 being cheap, whether that's Chacin or Beede or Velasquez, whoever, like if I pair Velasquez with Verlander, I'm still only spending a little over 18K at pitcher. I'm still going to have around $4,000 to spend on average for my hitters. And then you look at the offenses, Philly's right in that territory. The Rangers, who I think are in a really good spot against Leak, are cheap. The Orioles are cheap against a really bad. Actually, the Orioles are kind of expensive. Wow. That makes them really interesting in tournaments, I think.
I'm a big fan of them in tournaments today.
Yeah. But anyway, so the Cubs are not super expensive towards the bottom of the order. At the top, they're a little more expensive, but not like exorbitantly priced. So the point is being, there's no Coors game, there's no Texas, there's no game in Texas, there's no game in Cincinnati, there's no game with 100-degree weather where everyone's really expensive. So I think if you're spending around 18K at pitcher, you're going to get pretty much whatever you want hitter wise. And so what that means is, if you're fading Justin Verlander, who clearly is the best pitcher on the slate, you are getting quote unquote better bats, but you're going to be still competing with really good bats that also have Verlander. It's not a slate where it's like, I have to fade Verlander to get access to this one spot that is just head and shoulders better than everything else.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think of Oakland Bats against Verlander? They've got a lot of right-handed power, and that seems to be his sort of only issue.
Yeah.
Are they more appealing on this slate than they should be?
It's the same exact thing that we said about Garrett Cole. If you had to draw up the worst possible matchup for Justin Verlander, it's a lineup full of right-handed power that doesn't strike out a lot, and that's what the Oakland lineup is.
Yeah.
But he's not Garrett Cole in terms of strikeout stuff, but he's still one of the best strikeout pitchers in baseball, one of the best pitchers in baseball. He can go out there and pile up strikeouts against anyone. So it's less than ideal. But you're still talking about a 27.7% strikeout percentage against righties, a 294 expected WOBA, 211 expected ISO isn't great. He projects lower for me today than he normally does, like, around 24 DraftKings points, whereas normally I get him, 26 or 27. But there's also not a lot of comparable pitching still on the slate.
26.7 for me right now.
You said 26 for you?
26.7. So you gave me the range of like where I was landing. So that was perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a spot where I wouldn't even be mad if I got, Matt Chapman or Mark Canha in a lineup with having Verlander. Only 7 games, at least on DK. on FanDuel even more appealing since there's only 5. Where
I don't hate that idea. I won't be doing it, more or less because I'm too lazy to go into Cruncher and limit every other team from getting a one-off.
Yeah,
like it's the pitcher.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. On the FanDuel 5-gamer, I would probably just set it to 1.
Sure.
But on a 7-gamer, I can't do that. And then we're just going
to... The only spot really that I mean, there are actually some spots, I guess, even on the 7-gamer, like lefties against Chacin. Like I could see taking Chacin and like, I could see taking an Oakland power bat against Verlander. I could see taking like Kristen Stewart against Velasquez.
Yeah. There are spots.
Yeah, it's still not something I'm going to do, but if you were so inclined, this plays more, even though it's a 7-game slate on DraftKings, it plays more like a small slate.
It does.
If that makes sense, like in that regard.
36% expected ownership is where we're at on Verlander on DK today. Do you think you would be over that number, under that number, or just essentially around it?
My assumptions, I probably end up around it looking at my early projections.
Okay.
Yeah. Because, I mean, like I said, I do have them projected lower than I normally do. I have minor projected higher than I normally do. And minor is giving us a price discount.
I got to 62% Verlander. And that really scares the shit out of me.
I wouldn't be upset with that.
Oh, no. Like, it's not something that I would want to change. I can just see the writing on the wall of, like, getting those 3 or 4 alerts of like Chapman solo, Kana solo, yep. Chris Davis solo, and it's like, okay, cool. The A's aren't even that great of a stack, and I'm 62% of my lineups are shit.
Also, the roof might actually be open in Houston, which would not be great for Verlander.
Would you mind calling Houston and finding out? Can you do Laffy's job right now?
Right.
Laffy, if you're listening, can you please call the Astros to find out if their roof is open?
I'm Googling to see if I can find any info right now. If I remember right, Houston's a pain to figure out.
No idea.
As long as the roof is not on fire. Let's see if it actually gives us an answer. I don't know if they're one of the teams. What's today? 24th, roof's closed. Okay. Wait. Yeah. Okay. First pitch at 1:10, roof's closed.
Okay. That makes sense. I don't get the sense that you want that roof to be open in the middle of July in Houston at 1 o'clock.
It's like 80, 85 degrees. So if you're the thing is, if you're ever going to open the roof in Houston and let your fans like witness outdoor baseball, it would be today.
Yeah, I would have just assumed it was way hotter than that.
Yeah. But anyway, so the roof's closed. So that's a benefit for Verlander. Yeah. But what I was going to say was, even though Houston is a pitcher's park, especially with the roof closed, the one thing that it does favorably for hitters is play up right-handed power, especially compared, you're talking about an Oakland team that plays their home games at O.co with all the foul territory and with the massive outfield. Now they get the Crawford boxes in left against a pitcher who can't help but give up home runs, and they have a ton of right-handed power. So like you said, the writing's on the wall for how Verlander disappoints. That being said, I don't really care.
Back-to-back messages in YouTube chat. This is why I love the internet. Roof is open, ... Next message. Roof is closed.
Yeah, roof is closed.
Oh,
it is also movie day in Houston. They are screening Field of Dreams.
Yeah. I've never seen it.
What?
Yeah.
This is a first. I don't think I've ever been on a show and said something about a movie, and my co-host has said, "Oh, I've never seen it," and it's a movie that I've seen.
Now, obviously, I'm familiar with it. It would be way weirder if I didn't know anything about it. But I've never sat down and watched that movie from start to finish.
Well, they're showing it in Houston tonight if you wanted to go catch a game.
I'm on my way, man. On my way. Yeah, it's just, that's never been
Seems like a really cost-efficient way to see that movie.
Yeah. I'm sure it's on Netflix. Or
it's not on it. I'm pretty sure it's not on Netflix because I would have just noticed it, but I'm sure you can find it if you want to.
I'm sure I could. Yeah,
it is a good movie. Yeah. I haven't seen it in a really long time, but I enjoyed it when I was like 10 or whatever.
Yeah, pass. I was more of a Rookie of the Year kind of guy.
Yeah, I loved Rookie of the
Year. There it is. Josh should not be on a baseball show. That's the only one. I ride for other baseball movies.
I'll say I actually, even though I love baseball and everything, I haven't seen a lot of the classic baseball movies that I should have, but I have seen Field of Dreams.
What haven't you seen that you can think of right now?
I don't know off the top of my head. So I just recently, I think, saw The Natural.
Okay.
Like within the last couple of years.
I had a buddy who was like really into The Natural growing up, so that was my introduction to it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've seen Sandlot, Rookie of the Year, Angels in the Outfield, Field of Dreams. There are a couple that EMAC references where I'm just like, yep, haven't seen it.
Yeah, it's just I don't know.
I don't really like sports movies that much.
I don't disagree with that.
They're just, for the most part, the plot lines are like the underdog team wins, and it's I don't know. I don't like them that much.
I needed to have pure comedy throughout all of it, like Major League.
Yeah, exactly. I love Major League, and I liked sports movies when I was a kid, but now, for the most part, they don't really do anything for me.
I just love Moneyball. Not true. Terrible movie.
What'd you say?
I said I just love Moneyball, but I said not.
Oh,
true.
yeah, I've seen it. I don't remember it, but
I read the book. I got the real story.
oh yeah, I didn't read the book.
I probably read it 50 times.
It doesn't surprise me at all.
One of those books that used to live on the back of my parents' crapper, man. Just, you bang out a couple pages twice a day for a couple of years. All right, let's talk a little bit about hitting here on the early. As I mentioned, the Philadelphia Phillies, 22% aggregate ownership on DraftKings right now. That is almost double the Brewers and Rockies. They are both at 12% respectively. The Phillies getting a little bit too much love, or are they just looking at it like, hey, they faced Jordan Zimmerman and he sucks?
Their pricing's really, really, really appealing. It's a hitter's park. It's not as good for power as Philadelphia, but still a hitter's park. Really, really appealing pricing. Again, Zimmerman's really bad. Detroit's bullpen's bad. I certainly understand and agree with why Philadelphia would get ownership here.
Yeah, I don't really know what to say. It's not. They're my number one team as well. I understand why they're getting ownership. I assume that when all is said and done, I'll have less than the public, but still have some amount because I think the 23% is just too much for when there's 13 other teams on the slate.
Yeah, sure.
One other sports movie I want to mention. What about the garbage picking, field goal kicking Philadelphia phenomenon?
Disney, man. Disney in my childhood prime. Of course, I've seen it.
What a garbage movie. Literally, both as a movie and the fact that he is a garbage picker. Yeah. Just not a great concept. But whatever you got to do to get Tony Danza some love.
Wasn't that based on a true story?
No, you're thinking of Vince Papale.
Yeah.
I can't remember the name. It's a one-word title, I believe.
Yeah,
different movie. It's like that one, but worse. That's the Mark Wahlberg joint, right?
Right. Okay.
Yeah, a little bit different. How do you think you would manage the Phillies right now if they're going to get between 20 to 25% of the hitting ownership? Would that matter to you at all?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely matters. I don't think that I would be full fading them with only 14 teams on the slate. It's not kind of tying it back into the FC Pro type thing. If you looked at Osimo last night, he had zero or close to zero exposure to the Dodgers, which obviously I didn't get there. But this isn't the kind of slate where I would want to do something like that with the most popular team because there's just not that many other spots that I would really love to get to. But if they're going to be super popular, it's baseball. You obviously can come in underweight on them, get more exposure to teams like the Astros, like the Rangers, who I really like the Orioles, who we mentioned. There's still plenty of other spots to go to.
I feel so stupid for not being able to think of the name of that movie with Vince Papale. Damn movie's it's called Invincible.
Yeah, you're right.
Dude's name is Vince. I basically said 2/3 of the title of the name just by saying.
I kept thinking legendary, and I knew that wasn't it, but I knew it was a similar word.
Yeah, so did I. Okay, let's take a look at the other two relatively chalky teams today, and then we'll go ahead and get out of here. Any thoughts on the Brewers? Brewers 5.5 run implied total. They've got a date with Lucas Sims, former Brave. Big time ownership going to Kane, Yelich, Grandal, Moose Tacos. Not much going elsewhere. This is a game in Milwaukee. Big run total. We know the lefty power bats are here. You in for Brew Crew?
Yeah, I was actually in the middle when we got sidetracked by the movies of pulling up Lucas Sims stuff because I was always interested in him when he was with the Braves. His strikeout stuff this year has been ridiculous.
Yeah.
He's 16 starts at AAA with a 30% strikeout percentage. He's only thrown 9.2 innings in the majors, only one start, so you don't really care about his numbers there. But he's still only 25, former first-round pick. I mean, the pedigree's there. The strikeout stuff is there. Obviously, Milwaukee is a dangerous offense with a lot of left-handed power, but they do have strikeouts in there too. It's a spot where you can't really deny the upside, but it wouldn't really be surprising to see like a good game from Sims. I'm trying to pull up his splits. So it's tough because if you go back to like 2017, he's allowed a 340 expected WOBA, 156 expected ISO to lefties, but his strikeout stuff was just completely different. So I'm going to try and pull up, hopefully quickly, his minor league numbers and see what his splits this year. If you beat me to it, let me know. But
I did not.
It's just tough, like, to figure stuff like this out where the data on most of the major league data we have on this guy is from years ago, and especially with this era of baseball, guys adjust so much from year to year. I don't really want to look too much into it, but my kind of assumption is that it's a good spot for Milwaukee, but it's easy to see how they fail because you're talking about a guy that's going to strike out like 30% of hitters.
Yeah, it wouldn't shock me if they mow them all. If he starts mowing people down, it also wouldn't shock me if he got completely blasted.
Yeah, so against lefties at AAA this year, see, he had a much, much, much higher strikeout percentage against righties.
Okay.
48.2 innings pitched against righties, 74 strikeouts. 30.1 innings pitched against lefties, 28 strikeouts. So huge, huge difference there. He allowed 4 home runs in about 60% of the innings against lefties, 5 against righties. Don't have his ground ball to fly ball numbers in splits. He's always been a fly ball pitcher throughout his career. At AAA this year, a 50% fly ball percentage, but 25% was infield fly balls, which isn't bad. 4.13 FIP at AAA. He only allowed 1 home run per 9 innings despite pitching in the PCL. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah. How long would you expect him to go in this game? I have him coming in less than 5 innings.
Let me see.
What trade? How did he end up in Cincinnati? How did he end? Who came? What trade am I thinking of?
I don't remember what trade that was. I don't expect him to go deep. July 18th, he threw 15 pitches. July 21st, he threw 26.
Okay. Yeah, I saw he had been starting, and then I saw that he had 2 1-inning relief appearances.
Yeah, he'd been starting at AAA, but so July 13th, he threw 95 pitches.
What a terrible trade. Him, Preston Tucker, and Matt Whistler for Adam Duvall.
Oh, that's right.
I remember the deal.
That was like a deadline deal, if I remember correctly.
July 30th. 1 year ago. Next week. All right, final team that I think we should take a look at. The Colorado Rockies, 12% ownership right now. Up against Eric Fede. They are third in ownership. Most of that coming to the top 5 of Blackman, Story, Dahl, Arenado, Murphy. How do you feel about targeting Fede here?
I don't think he's terrible. I don't think he's great, especially for DFS purposes. Like, he's not a great strikeout pitcher.
Yeah.
But not an awful pitcher. He's never really put it together at the major league level, but he has been reasonably highly touted as a pitching prospect for the Nats. So I can see getting to Colorado because it's not a bad spot, and because the Nats bullpen's terrible too and everything. But it's still just a below average offense, outside of Coors Field.
Yep.
The pricing does stand out. Yonder Alonso is in the lineup at 2,600 on DraftKings.
Is he really? I didn't update any lineups yet.
Yeah, Colorado's no. Yeah, so Blackman, Story, Dahl, Arenado, Alonso, Tapia, McMahon, Walters. So probably the best lineup they could run out there.
Yeah.
But getting a $2,600 Alonso instead of like a $4,700 or whatever Daniel Murphy,
that's massive.
Is pretty appealing. Eric Fede against lefties since the start of last year has allowed a 142 expected ISO, 356 expected WOBA. He's done a good job in his career of limiting power to lefties, at least expected power. Against righties, he's had a lot more issues, 371 expected WOBA, 234 expected ISO. So Trevor Story, Nolan Arenado jump out as really good plays individually. But then you have, good hitters in Blackman and Dahl. You have a really cheap Alonso. I think I'll probably get to a pretty good amount of Colorado here.
Someone's saying that Alonso is not in the player pool. I don't have him either, so.
Yeah, neither do I. That's weird, though. He's The site I was looking at had him listed at 2,600, but
that's silly. Yeah. I guess we have one more thing we need to touch on.
The Rangers?
No. Although if you want to talk about the Rangers, have at it. I got a ton of them. The fourth most owned team today on this slate, the Washington Nationals, up against John Gray.
Yeah, that's weird to me. I respect the Nats. Like, I think that they've been their offense as a whole this year has been worse than really it should be. But I have a ton of respect for Gray. He's getting outside of Coors Field. The Nats aren't super affordable. They're not really expensive, but Rendon's still $5K. Soto's $4,500. Turner's $46. There's a lot of spots that I think I would rather pick on if the Nats are going to get ownership.
Yeah, I don't.
They're like the exact type of team where if you were like, guess who the third lowest owned team is, and it was the Nats, I'd be like, oh man, I want to play the Nats here just because they have talent.
Yeah.
But if they're going to get ownership, I'm fine going to some worse teams that are getting less ownership and facing worse pitchers.
Same. I have them ranked 11th today. This is just going to be a pretty easy fade for me. I would much rather just have some John Gray. If you want to get some Rangers thoughts in, feel free. I got to 11% on my dummy crunch.
Yeah, I just think it's a good, like Mike Leake gives up a ton of power. He doesn't strike guys out. You got a Texas team here who, it is a park downgrade going into Seattle, but they have a ton of guys with a ton of power. Joey Gallo not in the projected lineup. I don't know if he got hurt again or something. That would be disappointing if he's not in, but you still get a cheap Mazzara, Odor, Cabrera. Still a good spot. If Joey Gallo is out, then it becomes a little bit less appealing.
Agreed. Yeah, I have Chu looking good, Odor, Mazzara looking really good, and then very little ownership going to some of these other guys. Pence at 1%. I mean, mostly because he's 4,800. No respect for Leak after his last start. Sorry, I couldn't finish that without giggling.
I don't even know what he did in his last start.
Neither do I.
Oh, he almost threw a no-hitter. I remember.
Yeah, I don't even remember that.
That was, I think it was Friday because I was at the Orioles game, and I remember getting back from the game and getting an alert that he had a no-hitter and being really happy that I hadn't ended up playing that slate.
All right, let's close this out. G.I. Jers just said something that I think that we both that I want to touch on, and I think that you and I are going to be on the same page here. He said Vargas pitched a gem last night. Y'all guys got to eat some crow for killing that guy yesterday.
I didn't kill him. I said I've been wrong on him every freaking start, and I have no idea. And I was probably going to be wrong on him again. It's exactly what I said.
I went hard in the paint in the morning. But here's the deal. If they played again today, I'd have the exact same opinion. I'm not concerned that he had a good game yesterday, and it doesn't change anything that I thought yesterday. That start has no bearing on the opinion. If they played
I think I was lower on the Padres than you in general.
I was higher. Well, it's not that I was high on the Padres. I liked their ceiling. Like, they had the pieces of what makes a good GPP stack. It's not like I thought that they were particularly likely to do that over and over again, but it's just the data's the data, and Vargas has gotten blasted by right-handed power. If they played again tomorrow, I would have the exact same opinion that I had of the game yesterday. To me, it does not matter whatsoever how that game played out.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. That's in general, there's no reason to look back at a game and be like, I was wrong because this happened, as long as the numbers that you were looking at were correct. Like, as long as your assumptions were correct, there's a ton of variance in baseball. It's not like basketball where, we'll be on a show and say, like, I don't think that, Otto Porter's going to shoot a bunch, and then he was out there and shoots 25 times.
Right.
Like, okay, there's probably something we should have figured out why he was getting so many good looks.
Right.
Baseball, it's whatever.
Yeah. It's just something to touch on, that an individual outcome, it carries essentially no weight on the next day or the next start or the next whatever.
Right. Like, the conversation here would be, is Jason Vargas as bad as you think he is? Because I don't think he's that bad.
Right.
Like, that's where the conversation would be.
Yeah.
But it has nothing to do with what he did last night.
100%. 100%. Perfect. All right. Got the main slate done. Got to work through the early slate. If anybody wants any other early slate thoughts, the Early Bird podcast with Dan and Laffy has been up since last night. They do a great job of tackling the early on days where we have these split slates. As I mentioned, FanDuel will be locking in an hour. DraftKings locking just after 1 o'clock, 7-game slate for DK. We will have the deeper dive with Adam, Laffy, and Alex back at 5 o'clock. And then Chris Spags and I will be up from 6 to 7. Live Before Lock PGA edition coming out 9 p.m. tonight for the WGC FedEx St. Jude Invitational. Jason Roslin and Ben Rasa. Adam, anything else?
Joey Gallo update. Wrist issues, wrist injury, had an MRI. I've seen questionable, and I've also seen not expected to play today. Either way, I guess would kind of be a risky play if he's dealing with wrist issues. So that does downgrade Texas for me because they're losing their best hitter. Still like Texas, but yeah, that's the Joey Gallo update.
Perfect. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell so you can get alerted for everything that we do. Again, shout out to Yahoo for being our presenting sponsor. Please go check out Emacs Spotlight Hitters and Stacks article. You can get a little bit more information about playing at Yahoo. Let me find the link for that article quickly. Got to be hiding here somewhere. Found my article. If you want that, I highly recommend it. Spotlight Pitchers every morning, except for Saturday mornings, at which point Jake takes over for me. But if you want to sign up at Yahoo, you can use the promo code AWESOMO when doing so and get up to $30 in Yahoo Sports Rewards points. Best of luck, everybody. Adam and I will talk to you again on Friday. Good luck.